Becoming a hunter and sportsman brings with it many responsibilities. One of the most important is the role that hunters play in managing wildlife. To better understand how hunting affects wildlife, we need to know and understand all of the factors that affect animals in the wild. Habitat factors, birth rates, disease, predators, all affect wildlife populations. As a sportsman, you should be concerned with and know something about each of these factors. The ability to intelligently discuss your role as a hunter with your friends and non-hunting acquaintances can become very important. Only by understanding the importance of hunting and conservation yourself, and by helping others to understand, can we protect our privilege to hunt and enjoy our sport.
It's important to understand some of the reasons we care about wildlife and why we want to see it continue to survive and flourish. Wildlife is beautiful to watch and at the same time provides recreational opportunities such as photography, fishing, and hunting. Wildlife can also serve as an indicator of our own health. By studying wildlife, we can often discover and correct problems in our environment before they affect man. Many people also depend upon wildlife for economic benefits, working as a guide or providing a service to other sportsmen, manufacturing or selling sporting goods, providing lodging, or by maintaining a place to hunt. Hunting and other recreational use of wildlife can be an important source of revenue for a community.
Many people ask why we consider the sportsman's role so important. There are many reasons. Here are just a few.
More so than any other group, sportsmen pay the cost of protecting and managing wildlife. Most of the money that goes towards paying for game wardens, refuges, population improvement, and habitat protection comes from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses and tags. Additional monies come from the sale of sporting arms and ammunition. Through a program known as the Pittman-Robertson Act, a law that was suggested and supported by sportsmen, a tax was placed upon the sale of sporting firearms and ammunition purchased in this country. This means that every time someone buys a new gun or a box of shells, a portion of that money goes to support wildlife management. Since this is a tax on all sporting firearms and ammunition, target and recreational shooters also support wildlife, even though they do not hunt and may have no direct interest in wildlife. It's important that the public, including sportsmen and shooters, understand that hunters have traditionally played the most important part in paying for wildlife management programs. Fishermen also support their sport through a similar program funded by a tax on sport fishing equipment known as the Dingell-Johnson Act. More and more often, sportsmen are in the public eye, and for this reason, it's important that you understand the role you play as a hunter. On average, only about 10% of the people you meet will be hunters, and some, about 10%, will be opposed to any sport hunting. But the vast majority of people have no set opinion either way. By being able to intelligently discuss wildlife management programs and the role that hunting plays in that management, you can gain valuable support from your non-hunting acquaintances. All too often, hunters are accused of having no concern for wildlife, or of hunting animals to the point of extinction. Nothing could be further from the position taken by all ethical hunters. Regulated sport hunting is just one tool of a good wildlife management program and has never led to the extinction of a single animal population. You can point out to others the role sport hunting plays in regulating the size of animal populations. As we'll see, this is very important in protecting habitat and also helps keep wildlife populations productive and healthy. Sportsmen's groups also provide funds and manpower for special projects related to habitat improvement.
Before we can fully understand the sportsman's role, we must first understand the needs of wildlife and what affects it.
As we talk about wildlife management, one single word gets repeated over and over. That word is habitat. We know now that habitat is the single most important factor in wildlife populations. Let's take a look at what makes up good habitat and why it's so important. Habitat consists of 5 basic elements: food, cover, water, space, and arrangement. Food is obviously one of the most basic needs of wildlife, but different species of wildlife need different things to eat. Good habitat would contain many different types of food so that it could support different types of wildlife. Good cover is necessary for a number of reasons. They include a place to hide away from predators and a place in which to rest, protected from bad weather. Cover generally consists of natural vegetation which can be used to hide or shelter wildlife. All wildlife needs water to drink. Even desert animals must drink sometime. And some wildlife, such as waterfowl, need wetlands to feed and raise their young. A good supply of water can often be the main reason animals will use an area. Wildlife cannot be crowded together into too little space. If prey animals cannot rest away from predators, they will not be able to reproduce. When too many predators are in a particular area, they can place excessive pressure on the prey species. Also, if too many animals are crowded into one area, they can damage it by consuming too much forage and make it unsuitable for any wildlife. The way different habitat elements are arranged will affect what types and how much wildlife will live there. As a rule, wildlife tend to prefer places where diverse types of habitat come together. The area where these different types of habitat come together is called the edge. When small blocks of cover are next to food or water, animals can feed and return to cover without exposing themselves to predators. Predators also watch this edge because they know it will contain the highest concentration of prey animals. The most successful hunters will also use their knowledge of the arrangement of habitat to locate a particular type of animal. The deer hunter might look for areas where small clearings are next to forest or chaparral, whereas the quail hunter might do best in heavy cover or berries next to grain fields. Habitat is the single most important factor affecting wildlife numbers. When we protect the habitat, wildlife can flourish, and the best way to increase wildlife numbers is to improve the habitat.
Here at the Cosumnes River Preserve, one of our major goals is to restore 1,500 acres of seasonal wetland. In an area where once was a vast floodplain, most of the acreage has now been turned into agricultural land. And what we have done is we have come into the Cosumnes River Project, and we have restored about 400 acres right now with heavy equipment, creating seasonal impoundments. We flood these impoundments in the wintertime and provide habitat for migratory ducks, geese, swans, and other water birds. A second step of our restoration project here is to actually try to get the types of plants that occur naturally in our ecosystems here in California. The wetland ecosystems really are characterized by bulrush or tule. Although we can probably get tule to become established in these ponds naturally through flooding of the ponds, we want to sort of give it a head start on other wetland plants. The reason why this is important is the tule provides an interspersion of open habitat in the ponds, and the ducks also really like this characteristic of the ponds. It also provides nesting habitat for some of the non-duck species here, for example, marsh wrens, some of the blackbirds, and so forth. We are involving our Ducks Unlimited members in accomplishing this goal because it is a labor-intensive process to plant tules. I think the important thing that they're learning is they're learning not only about marsh restoration, but they're learning that they can make a difference in in the problems with habitat destruction in the Central Valley today.
When a species is no longer present in an area as a result of poor habitat, it can be reintroduced after the habitat has been restored. Often it is hard to protect a particular type of wild animal and have it remain wild. It's usually easier and better to protect the habitat. This protects all the animals that might use the area. When we look at habitat, one of the factors we're trying to understand is the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is the number of animals of a certain species that a particular habitat will support in a healthy condition over time. This carrying capacity is different for each species. For example, an area of forest might support 10 deer, but would only support 1 elk, and would support no mallard ducks at all. The only way to really increase wildlife populations is to increase the carrying capacity of the habitat. When the habitat is improved, wildlife numbers will increase to this new capacity. When the number of animals exceeds the carrying capacity, both wildlife and habitat suffer. Wildlife suffers because the available habitat can no longer support the wildlife needs. Habitat suffers because in an effort to survive, animals will continue to consume forage until all the available food source or prey animal is used. In a well-balanced habitat, the prey animals and plants have a chance to replace themselves and regenerate. Another factor that affects habitat is called succession. This is the slow, gradual change of habitat. A marsh may change to bushy growth to young forest to old forest. Each of these stages support a different variety of wildlife, and as the habitat changes from one stage to another, the wildlife also changes or moves away. Succession is change spread over time. Lastly, but most importantly, let's look at the effect humans have on the habitat. Humans often have a destructive effect on habitat. By clearing land for building and development, wildlife is pushed away. If it can find no other suitable habitat, it will perish. But man can also improve habitat. By using a sound management policy and applying habitat improvement projects, wildlife numbers can be increased. Projects can be as simple as clearing old brush and thinning timber to allow new growth that is more beneficial to wildlife, or something as complex as rebuilding a complete marshland habitat. Money from hunting and fishing licenses, plus money from sportsmen's groups, fund many of these important projects. They're an excellent example of how sportsmen pay for wildlife management programs and assist in wildlife improvement.
While habitat is the most important factor that affects wildlife, there are many others. Birth rate, climate, predators, diseases and parasites, starvation, and hunting.
Birth rate is the number of young a female produces annually. This rate can be affected by many things. Usually the birth rate is related to the size of the animal and whether it is a prey or predator species. As a general rule, small prey species such as quail or rabbits produce many offspring annually, while large animals such as elk, deer, or bear may produce only 1 or 2 young per year. This is one way nature maintains a balance. If large predators such as coyotes or mountain lions were to produce large numbers of offspring, they would soon overrun the supply of prey species, destroying the prey species, thereby destroying themselves. Climate or weather can also play a part in limiting wildlife numbers. Cold or harsh weather increases an animal's need for food. It must eat more to maintain its body temperature. Snow can cover the forage that some animals eat, making it harder to find. Harsh weather also slows the growth of plants that would provide food and cover in good weather. Usually, most animals would move to lower elevations or otherwise shift their activities to escape this harsh weather, but this is not always possible. Man-made barriers such as towns and freeways can block this normal migration and trap animals in a place where weather has an effect on them. In good habitat, predators generally do not depress wildlife numbers. They take only a limited number of prey species, usually below the prey species' ability to maintain its numbers. Some of the first attempts to manage wildlife focused on eliminating predators. It was found that this led to overproduction of the prey species. This in turn caused destruction of the habitat. Through this trial and error, it was found that in a balanced habitat, the predator has a natural place and plays an important role in keeping wildlife vigorous. Like predators, disease and parasites usually have little long-term effect on animals in good habitat. If there is sufficient habitat, disease does not usually affect an entire population. But in poor habitat, the animals can become weak or overcrowded. Then disease and parasites can be spread through the entire population quickly, causing devastating loss. Without a doubt, food supply is one of the most important of these factors that control wildlife. Even in good habitat, starvation is what determines what will live and die. When food is abundant, wildlife numbers increase. But as less and less food is available, the weaker animals are the first to die. This usually means the very old and the very young. But usually starvation does not affect the whole population. Almost always a certain percentage survive to reproduce next spring. This breeding stock are the most important individuals in a population. If the breeding stock does not survive, the species cannot survive. Nature can be very harsh. Starvation is the tool that nature generally uses to control wildlife numbers. Regulated sport hunting is the tool that wildlife management uses to help nature control wildlife numbers. Sport hunting takes some of the excess animals out of the population. These animals would generally starve or die of disease as a result of being weakened by poor nutrition. By removing these excess animals, we leave more food and cover for the breeding stock, ensuring its good health. Early in history, humans hunted for survival and there were no laws to control hunting. Some wildlife populations were driven close to extinction. Prior to modern wildlife management, professional hunters called market hunters took deer, turkey, ducks, rabbits, and other small game to sell in cities where people did not have time to hunt for themselves. They hunted without regard to seasons, limits, or breeding stock. Finally, about 1900, people began to realize that wildlife was being destroyed. They enacted laws and regulations to abolish market hunting and set seasons and bag limits. Hunters can now be proud of the fact that regulated sport hunting has never led to the endangerment or extinction of a single species. Sport hunting is a tool that wildlife professionals use to remove surplus animals and also to protect the habitat. Regulated sport hunting also provides money from the sale of licenses and tags, as well as the sale of firearms and ammunition. This money is for enforcement of game laws, to provide hunter education and safety programs, and to protect and develop habitat. Remember that regulated sport hunting is a tool of sound wildlife management. To see how we use this tool, let's look at how a season is set. One of the first things a wildlife professional needs to know is how many animals of a species are in an area. This is called a wildlife census or population survey. Among the factors considered are population size, reproduction rate, number of males to females, hunter success, and desired postseason condition of the herd. As you can imagine, it can be very difficult to get an accurate count of all wildlife, especially in heavy cover, and not all populations can be counted. So to be more accurate, along with a wildlife census, a habitat census is also done. By looking at the food, water, cover, space, and arrangement, we can tell if too much pressure is being put on the habitat. By using all this information, plus experience gained over many years of managing wildlife, a season and bag limits that protect the breeding stock and the habitat and give equal opportunity to all sportsmen can be developed. Game laws must take into account many things in order to be fair and useful. They must first be based on sound biological information. They must also be flexible to reflect changes in conditions, such as changes in habitat or extreme weather. They must also take into account human pressure on the habitat, such as removal of predators or land development. And finally, game laws should use wildlife wisely, not just preserve it. Conservation, or wise use, is one way that wildlife that's taken by hunters provides money that pays for the protection of habitat.
Now that we can see the sportsman and hunter plays an important role in wildlife survival, let's look at some of the things concerned sportsmen can do.
Obey all the rules and regulations and insist that those that hunt with you do the same. Remember that wherever you hunt, you are in the public eye, and that our privilege to hunt depends on public acceptance. Help inform the public and your non-hunting friends about the role the hunter plays in wildlife management. Regulated sport hunting has never led to the endangerment of a species, and hunting is a tool of sound wildlife management. In addition, sport hunting helps keep wildlife strong and protects the habitat. Be the best example of a hunter and true sportsman you can be. Be a safe hunter and teach others safe gun handling and hunting. Act and look responsible. Show a concern for landowners' rights and the rights of others. Remember, a hunting license is not a permit to trespass. Explain your actions to those that do not understand. Many people, even if they are not hunters themselves, will support hunting programs once they understand the hunter's role. And remember that all shooters, even target shooters, support the program.
Understanding the sportsman's role in wildlife management and helping others to understand the needs of wildlife is the responsibility of every hunter. The more you learn about wildlife management, the better hunter and sportsman you become. Now I hope that you understand and can help others to understand the sportsman's role in wildlife management.